you all for coming to the class, and I welcome back Mother Bangalata. It's nice to see her here again. So we're reading from the last chapter, 828, Attaining the Supreme. We'll do the Auspicious Prayers first. Om Gena Kamaranda Shah Gana Gana Salakaya Taksumalitamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitanya Bhutale Swarupa Kadamayam Dadanti Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Parakamalam Shri Gurum Vaisnavam Cha Shri Rupan Shagvajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Savadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitam Cha E Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwabhanu Sutta Devi Hanumami Hari Priye Vanta Kapya Surubhya Cha Kripa Sindhu Vieva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasudeva Gauda Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Vedeshu Yagneshu Tapashu Chaiva Dineshu Yat Punya Palam Pratishtam Yayati Tatsavam Viditva Yogi Param Saram Upayati Chadyam Word for word, Vedic Shu, in the study of the Vedas, Yagya Shu, in the performances of Yagya, sacrifice, Tapeshu, in undergoing different types of austerities, Cha, also, Eva, certainly, Daneshu, in giving charities, Yat, that which, Punya Phalam, result of pious work, Pradistam, indicated, Adyati, surpasses, Tat Sarvam, all those, Idam, this, Viditva, knowing, Yogi, the devotee, Param, supreme, Stanam, abode, Upayati, achieves, Cha, also, Adyam, original. Translation and purport by His Very Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada. A person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing sacrifices, undergoing austerities, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. Simply by performing devotional service, he attains all these, and at the end he reaches the supreme eternal abode. So repeat, a person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing sacrifices, undergoing austerities, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. Simply by performing devotional service, he attains all these. And at the end, he reaches the supreme eternal abode. Purport. This verse is the summation of the 7th and 8th chapters, which particularly deal with Krishna consciousness and devotional service. One has to study the Vedas under the guidance of the spiritual master and undergo many austerities and penances while living under his care. A brahmachari has to live in the home of the spiritual master, just like a servant. And he must beg alms from door to door and bring them to the spiritual master. He takes food only under the master's order. And if the master neglects to call the student for food that day, the student fasts. These are some of the Vedic principles for observing Brahmacharya. After the student studies the Vedas under the master for some time, at least from age 5 to 20, he becomes a man of perfect character. Study of the Vedas is not meant for the recreation of armchair speculators, but for the formation of character. After this training, the brahmachari is allowed to enter into household life and marry. When he is a householder, he has to perform many sacrifices so that he may achieve further enlightenment. He must also give charity according to the country, time, and candidate, discriminating among charity in goodness, in passion, and in ignorance, as described in Bhagavad-Gita. Then after retiring from household life, upon accepting the order of Vanapras, he undergoes severe penances, living in forests, dressing with tree bark, not shaving, etc. By carrying out the orders of brahmacharya, householder life, Vanapras, and finally sannyas, one becomes elevated to the perfectional stage of life. Some are then elevated to the heavenly kingdoms, and when they become even more advanced, they are liberated in the spiritual sky, either in the impersonal Brahmajyoti, or in the Vaikuntha planet, or Krishna Loka. This is the path outlined by Vedic literatures. The beauty of Krishna consciousness, however, is that by one stroke, by engaging in devotional service, one can surpass all the rituals of the different orders of life. The words idam viditva indicate that one should understand the instructions given by Sri Krishna in this chapter and the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. One should try to understand these chapters not by scholarship or mental speculation, but by hearing them in association with devotees. Chapters 7 through 12 are the essence of Bhagavad Gita. The first 6 and the last 6 chapters are like coverings for the middle 6 chapters, which are especially protected by the Lord. If one is fortunate enough to understand Bhagavad Gita, especially those middle 6 chapters, in the association of devotees, then his life at once becomes glorified beyond all penances, sacrifices, charities, speculations, etc. For one can achieve all the results of these activities simply by Krishna consciousness. One who has a little faith in Bhagavad Gita should learn Bhagavad Gita from a devotee, because in the beginning of the 4th chapter it is stated clearly that Bhagavad Gita can be understood only by devotees. No one else can perfectly understand the purpose of Bhagavad Gita. One should therefore learn Bhagavad Gita from a devotee of Krishna, not from mental speculators. This is a sign of faith. When one searches for a devotee and fortunately gets a devotee's association, one actually begins to study and understand Bhagavad Gita. by advancement in the association of the devotee, one is placed in devotional service, and this service dispels all one's misgivings about Krishna or God, and Krishna's activities, form, pastimes, name, and other features. After these misgivings have been perfectly cleared away, one becomes fixed in one's study. Then one relishes the study of Bhagavad-Gita and attains the state of feeling always Krishna conscious. In the advanced stage, one falls completely in love with Krishna. This highest perfectional stage of life enables the devotee to be transferred to Krishna's abode in the spiritual sky, Goloka Vrindavan, where the devotee becomes eternally happy. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 8th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad-Gita in the matter of attaining the Supreme. So in the beginning of this verse, first let me say in the previous verses, Krishna was talking about the yogis and the jnanis and their path trying to reach the spiritual sky. And there's always a chance of them getting misdirected or getting derailed from reaching that goal, because unless they've perfectly understood that Krishna is a person, then they get derailed, or they wind up thinking, I'm God, or they, want to go to the Brahmayoti, where, there's no service. They just merge with the Lord. So now, in this explanation, Srila Prabhupada talks about Varnashram Dharma and what the orders of the life are, Brahmacharya. And it says Vedishu, so it means that the Brahmacharis, they study the Vedas. That's what they do. And we know that when Prabhupada was trying to preach, he would ask, some, men who came to see him, give me your son, let me train your son. But in these ages, the parents had plans for their son, and being a brahmachari was not in the plan. They want them to get ahead, get married, have children so they can have grandchildren. So it wasn't really a popular idea. This Vedic structure, which is coming from the Lord, is the steps towards purification. So, and it says he takes food only under the master's order, and if the master says, forgets or doesn't give him, then the student fasts. So we know, how difficult fasting is, especially when Ekadashi comes. We're all like, this is a fast, this is austerity that we have to do. So that's some of the Vedic principles for Brahmacharya. And then he goes on to talk about, when the Brahmachari gets married and the Grihastha life. So we read in the Bhagavad-Gita, what are the duties of a Grihastha? They give charity. Their life is about sacrifice, tapishu, undergoing sacrifice, yagnishu, in the performance of yagna. So they sacrifice a lot. When they go into a grihastha ashram, they're supposed to give charity, they're supposed to receive sannyasis in their home, they're supposed to feed. In fact, I understand that the grihasthas are supposed to, before they eat, when they cook, they're supposed to go out and ask, is anybody hungry? Does anybody want to eat? As long as you don't go into a brahmachari ashram, because you'll have all the brahmacharis coming to eat, but that's basically it. That's their sacrifice. They have to give in charity. They have to give alms to the sannyasis. They have to actually, the grihasthas are supposed to take care of, brahmacharis and the sannyasis. They're supposed to take care. It's supposed to give them charity. And so then from there, after, you're supposed to retire at 50, but we see nowadays nobody's actually retiring from household life. It's not a popular notion, actually. In fact, in this movement, you don't hear much about Vanapras. There's not much discussion about what Vanapras means. How do you perform Brahmacharya? Where is the Vanapras class of devotees? So anyway, it says Vanapras. So he undergoes severe penances, living in the forest, dressing in tree bark. So who wants to dress in tree bark? In Vrindavan, there used to be a forest, but it's a little bit of a small city now. But so you go to the forest, you eat fruits and roots. Not all the opulent prasadam that we're fortunate to get from the Lord. The offerings. So nowadays, who is doing? And actually, this isn't a subject, for a whole discussion. But Prabhupada said, he wanted to show how to, create a varnashram system in the farm communities, and so that the general populace, can come to the farm and gradually be purified. So, and even this day and time, there are so many. The future is uncertain, so we don't know what's really going to happen. You have so many people who are distressed now because of the situation. We're fortunate because we understand what this material world is about. And we know that these things that are happening are, part of the material energy. It's part of the material world. That's what goes on. So I was reading something with Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He talked about, during his time, I think there was a plague that was happening. And he was saying, we needn't be afraid if we have to leave our bodies. The problem is the fear of having to give up the body. But he said we shouldn't, be disturbed by having to give up the body, because we have so much information about the Lord and about we're chanting and we're performing all this devotional service and learning how to serve the Lord and learning how to love the Lord, so we can go back home to be with Him. In fact, this whole this Krishna consciousness is about the heart. It's about love. It's about learning to love Krishna as much as He loves us. So, so this is the path that was outlined for people who, needed a steady progression of how to, reach the goal. So this concession was given, so they could, know how to develop along the way to, in the end, understand what is their relationship with God and what to do about it. So then here, Prabhupada is saying the beauty of Krishna consciousness. Who doesn't think this is a beautiful process? It's such a beautiful process. And actually, I want to go back a minute because I wanted to talk about a little bit about society today. Like, we see that what's happening to the students right now because of the pandemic. They're all getting disturbed. They're not even able to really pursue that. Anyway, it's the education that they paid for. They're either getting locked down in some place, they're not being able to do their studies online, or so many difficulties are coming because of the situation. And even before then, we know what student life, college life actually, at least I know in America, is just sense gratification. They go to the colleges, and now they have co-ed dormitories, so they just go for sense gratification. All the rules, whatever rules or regulations, are null and void for the students. They just see it as a means of freedom from any restrictions. And even some of them get so distraught, we've heard that, they may even commit suicide because of the difficulties in trying to meet expectations, maybe of their family, of the society, or the pressure of being in this educational system that's just actually a slaughterhouse for those students, because they're not learning the real meaning of life. They're just being run through a machine so they can come out and just become consumers and become slaves. They have to go from door to door and beg. They're not begging alms from the spiritual master. They're begging for a job. They're begging, please take me as your dog, so I can be your slave, so I can, have some money, so I can get married, so I can buy a house, so I can buy a car, so I can, so I can do what everybody else in the society is doing, So it's so nice when we have preachers who are preaching in the colleges. So back to, where was I? So in this paragraph, the words idam viditva indicate that one should understand the instructions given by Sri Krishna in this chapter and in the 7th chapter. And one should try to understand these chapters not by scholarship or mental speculation, but by hearing them in association with devotees. So the first 6 chapters are, the middle chapters from 7 to 12 talk about bhakti, and then the first 6 and the last, that chapter, that jewel, is the jewel, the essence of the Gita. It's sandwiched in between. No. So by the time the mental speculators and the philosophers get through the first 6, they're completely befuddled because they reach the wrong conclusion, and they try to squeeze out some meaning. Because just see, Srila Prabhupada, all he did was go into America, sit down and chant, and then, after some time, begin reading the scriptures to the people who were coming. And because of his love for Krishna and his potency, just see what's going on. The whole movement is just rolling like an ocean. And actually it's an ocean of love, because this process is about the heart. It's a heart process, It's not, we intelligently read the scriptures, we understand the philosophy, but eventually in every chapter, at the end of the chapter, Krishna says, it's about bhakti. Please come to me. It's about love. It's about loving, not just loving Krishna, because if you don't love all other living entities, there's no way you're going to love Krishna, because everybody's Krishna's parts and parcels. So we have to love everybody. We have to develop that love in the heart. And this process is very, very, very powerful. An example about, I was thinking about these mental speculators. I just thought of one incident. One time I was somewhere, I was always traveling, I was somewhere in another country, and I got on a bus. And in third world countries, the bus is packed because there's so little room, and they have their animals and everything on the bus. So there can be this much room, between you and the next person, but someone will come and like wiggle their way into your space, even if there's no space, they're going to make a space. So I was trying to apply this to like the mental speculators. They go into the Gita and they just kind of wiggle around in there to screw out some meaning from the Gita, because they really don't understand it. They always come to the wrong conclusion. And they never come to the conclusion that Krishna is a person, even though he says it in here. You know, even he talks. And I was remembering that when I was in the U.S., I was helping one devotee do a Gita session. She was doing a Gita session, and we had 2 scientists come in to the class, women. And what disturbed them the most was how Krishna was always saying, me, 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 me. And they were disturbed by that. You know, they were like, why is it like that? Why is he always saying me, I am, I, you know? They didn't understand, actually, because they were envious. They were envious of Krishna. It just came right out, you know, that they were envious. And so why did Krishna give this knowledge to Arjuna? He gave it to Arjuna because Arjuna was not envious. Arjuna was his friend. You know, so Krishna reserves the right. The question comes up like, why did he hide the jewel in the middle? Because he reserves the right not to display himself to everybody and anybody. No, he reserves that right. He doesn't have to. No, unless we come to a spiritual master in a submissive mood, nobody's gonna understand. That's why all of them couldn't reach the correct conclusion, because they were just using their mental gymnastics to figure out what the Gita meant. So they could, you know, like screw up some meaning or write some paper or get followers. So, and then he says at the end, if one is fortunate enough to understand Bhagavad Gita, especially those middle 6 chapters, in the association of devotees, then his life is at once becomes glorified. So he's saying, you know, you just have to have the association. With the yogis, they have to sit in this yoga position, they have to leave at a certain time, they have to meditate, focus on the chakras, they have to sit on, you know, animal skin, they have to do it in a certain way. And, you know, and then in the varnashram system, you know, there's certain sacrifices that you have to do. But this process of bhakti is just the elevator. You just take the elevator straight up, you know, go through the process, you know, that's the easiest path. That's the path that's given, okay? So we can't, you know, like just understand by our own intelligence. And as we read the Gita more, we can see that it's an exchange of love between Arjuna and Krishna, but actually an exchange of love between Krishna and all the living entities. Krishna wants us back more than we want to go back. Krishna wants our love. You know? So, you know, if we keep studying the Gita, then we can begin to really dive into the emotional exchanges that go on between Arjuna and Krishna. Krishna and Arjuna. So, and then the next paragraph, it says, one who has a little faith, just have a little faith. So what is faith? It's faith it's a belief in something sublime, you know. And so this process is sublime. And this bhakti can take us to the highest point. There's no other process that can take you up to Krishna Prem. This process, everything is encompassed. We just have to have unalloyed devotion, completely dedicated to reading the scriptures, following the instructions of our spiritual master, performing devotional service, and keep Krishna always in the front. Sarvadharma parityaja mamekam saranam vraja aham tvam sarva papibhyo moksha yishami mam sutraha. Just abandon all other religions. Just surrender to me. Just give up. And in the other places, he just says about just give your heart to me. And in Krishna Prema, there's nothing beyond that. This is the ultimate happiness. And we can do it in this one step. Everything is there. Everything is there. Everything's obtained. And he can only be known by the power of bhakti. He can only be recognized and known and loved by devotional service. If you don't serve him, if you don't understand his pastimes and activities, then how are you going to, reach the goal? He says, Janma karma cha me divyam. Just understanding my activities. Then you won't have to come back here again. And he doesn't say, if you don't do this, if you don't want to do things, forget it. I'm not going to deal with you. Sometimes we have relationships with people and they say, okay, I'm done with you. Oh, I'm finished. It's too much, whatever. This is why we also have to be tolerant. Because Krishna is super tolerant of everything because of the love that he has for all of his living entities. So he's nothing you can do is going to make him stop loving you. Just like a father. Even if the son goes away and does nonsense or gets into trouble or whatever, goes to jail or whatever, the love is still there. It doesn't go away. So in this same way, he gives so many ways. In chapter 12 of the Bhagavad-Gita, he gives all kind of ways for you to come to him. He's giving you so many ways to come. If you don't want to do this, do this. If you don't want to, if you can, you look at chapter 12, and he's so magnanimous, He says,
28. 28.
Yes. He says, just fix your mind upon me without deviation. And then follow the regulative principles of bhakti-yoga. And if you cannot practice regulations of bhakti-yoga, then try to work for me. If, however, you're even unable to do that, then work in consciousness of me. Then try to act giving up all results. And then he says, if you cannot take to this practice, then engage yourself in the cultivation of knowledge. Better than knowledge is meditation, and better than meditation is renunciation of the fruits of action. So, he's given every way for us to come back to him because he wants us to come. He wants to, So we've been given a very wonderful gift, of this process of bhakti. And we're not deserving of it, at least I know I'm not. And then we can understand that we are eternal servants of Krishna. that we're spirit soul, and the soul's nature is to love. So we just have to uncover that love in the heart. Mm-hmm. And I was reading, I don't know if all of you know Chaitanya Charan. I listen to his classes a lot as well. And he was doing a lecture on the emotions that are in the Bhagavad Gita, the emotional exchanges between Krishna and Arjuna. And in 834, Krishna is saying, if you remember me, I'll be easily obtainable. I'm easy to obtain by the path of bhakti. And he says that Krishna cannot tolerate separation from his parts and parcels. He said, I forget which chapter it's in of the Gita, but all the parts and parcels, they're mine. They belong to me. All of us belong to Krishna. We don't belong anywhere else. We just belong to Krishna. And so he wants to, re-engage us in that relationship with him. And then, once if we develop that love, then that love that we're looking for everywhere else, all the wrong places, should be reposed at the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. So, with that, I will end the class and open it up. I thank you for your attention. Open up to questions, comments, corrections. Okay. Jai.
Yeah.
Yes.
Here, in this text, Krishna says that by giving the charity, dana,
Yes.
yajna, sacrifice,
Yes.
the results will be obtained by the devotional service. By performing the devotional service, he will get those results also, automatically.
The Lord, right? The Lord you're speaking of.
Yeah,
Yes.
you are getting my point.
Mm-hmm.
By performing the devotional service, the person gets the results of studying Veda or Yajna,
Yes,
all that.
yes.
So how actually, suppose a person gives a cow as charity to some Brahman, he gets a lot of punya or the result of good deeds. How that devotional service, by performing devotional service, he gets that result also? How?
I'm not quite understanding. You mean if he does both? If he gives charity and does devotional service?
No, a person who is giving charity, he gets the result of good deeds. Okay.
Punya.
In this, Vedeshu Yajneshu Tapassu Chaiva, Daneshu Yad Punya Phalam Pratishtam, Atyeti Tat Sarvam Idam Vidit. So all these things he will get while doing the devotional service.
Yes, all of that's included. That's what
Yeah.
is. That's the result, right?
So how is that he will get? Now, by giving charity, he gets some result. That result, how he gets by devotional service?
I don't know. Maybe Mother.
Well, this paragraph here, the beauty of Krishna consciousness is that by one stroke, by engaging in devotional service, one can surpass all the rituals of the different orders of life. One actually surpasses them. Because this punya that you're getting from giving your charity, devotional service surpasses that because it takes you out of the material world.
Wow,
This punya keeps you in the material world. You only go to the heavenly planet. A devotional service takes you out of the material world. So in that way it surpasses it.
Is that okay for you? Thank you.
There may also be other answers. That's one answer for
Yes, we can always look at the scriptures from, Prabhupada said, from different points of view, always.
Yeah, he wanted us to look.
He wanted us to, yes. So, thank you.
But the technical aspects are beyond me. So,
The second thing is that this is the commitment of Lord Krishna.
yes, that's right. He's
It's
saying.
the commitment of this.
He's saying.
You don't
that
think
you're
that
not-
it is great or it is not great, whether it is covered or not covered.
No.
You must trust Lord Krishna only.
Yeah.
This
So
is sufficient only.
good. This is his
We
promise.
should not create
He
doubt
says.
actually.
Mm,
It is known as a mental speculation.
yes.
Because those who are not devoted, they would definitely speculate how it is covered, how it is not covered actually.
Mm,
Or once there is a devotee, then he is a devotional service actually, he will not think. He will say just that Krishna has said, it is perfect.
yes.
It is perfect. There is no doubt about
No.
it. My thinking, I just want to say what I feel.
Okay.
Now, here Krishna is saying, whatever you do by giving charity, by doing sacrifice, by doing austerities, by studying the Vedas, these results you will get. Not only that, you will get the supreme award. Now, he is not bereft of the results of the following activities, number 1, 2, 3, 4.
And
So-
in the last sentence, he says simply by performing devotional service, he attains all these.
Yeah. So he will get that also. For example,
Are you saying that he will get
he will
the
get
result from the charity as well as the result from devotional service?
No, the thing is, by performing devotional service, he gets the result of all this. Number 1, 2, 3, 4. And he will get the supreme award. That is the greatness of the devotional service.
Mhm.
For example, suppose a person performs a yajna, the sacrifice,
Yagya. Mm-hmm.
and he gets lot of punya, the result of good deeds. With the result of good deeds, he may have very good health. For example, he may have very good physical body.
Mhm.
So, by performing the devotional service, he will also get the, health also he will get. He will not feel the disease.
But not necessarily.
Yeah.
We've seen, like devotees do get sick.
Yeah, that is outside. But inside, you don't feel the disease at all. Tattenu kampa susamikshamana. While, even though he is suffering, he is always praying to Krishna that, oh Krishna, you have given so less. I should have suffered much more.
It depends on what state of realization in devotional service that they're on, because everybody is not at the same consciousness, even though they may be doing devotional service. But each person, devotee, is not on the same level in terms of understanding. They're progressing. There are some who are just progressing. There are some who are pure devotees. But everyone doesn't really understand that, because some devotee may say, oh Krishna, why are you doing this to me? We've heard, right? So it's not that everybody's on the same consciousness. In this society, everybody can't be on the same consciousness. Or if everything would be perfect, there would be no struggles, there would be no problems within ISKCON if everybody was on the same level. Is it?
Yeah.
So, some people blame Krishna, like, why did my son die? I've known devotees, they've lost children and they've suffered so much and they blame Krishna. But yet they were doing devotional service. But one thing is, Krishna accepts all devotional service, whether it's mixed or whether it's pure. I don't know if that, fits in there where you were trying to tell me.
No, I agree with you.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't necessarily attain all the results.
That's what I heard from some Vaishnava, that the Lord runs behind the devotee to give every pious deed or moksha or whatever higher siddhis he wants. But the devotee refuses that he doesn't want any of these things
Correct.
but the Lord himself.
Even
But some devotional service is motivated. It's not supposed to be motivated, but we can't say that all devotees have no motivations. You know, it's
So like even if like you were saying that the fruitive activities, are we going to get the fruits? So the Lord is ready to give the fruits, but the devotee denies that he doesn't want these fruits.
all devotees.
yeah, pure devotee.
No, oh, pure
If a
devotees.
person is called
So I'm not a pure devotee. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm not a pure devotee, so I can't say that, you know.
We can look at the life of Srila Prabhupada, right? He went to America with 40 rupees, and what did he achieve? He got all the results as well. He got the money as well.
That's what actually, by doing something you get so much of punya that as a result of punya you become rich, you become healthy, you become very knowledgeable person. Krishna is saying that you get everything, you don't run after that. You do devotional service, you get everything.
Guru Nishtha is required.
And when it is offered, as Shri Mataji rightly said, the devotee says, no, I don't want. I want devotional service from you. Krishna is offering, take lakhs of rupees. No, I don't want. I don't want. I want your devotional service. Once more.
Thank you. Thank you for the discussion. That's good. I'm glad. I'm glad for the discussion. Yes. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.